Okay, so here we are on part 2 of the Kennedy Class 2 Modification 1, Project 4. This is the one that I just did the drawing, and we're going to do the analog for you now, the blockout and the digital. Now, I took the liberty before doing the drawing on the model to survey the abutment teeth, which helped me design the cast framework design on paper for the prescription. And then I transferred that onto the model already. So what you missed was the height of contour, as I mentioned earlier, and the undercut location of 0.25 millimeters on the mesial buccal of 4.5, on the mesiolingual of 4.7, and the G-clasp mesial buccal of 3.5. So now that I've already in advance dictated the path of insertion, and I'm just going to scribe it on the model in 2 ways that we've been doing, along the base, on the x-axis and the y-axis. Carefully not to move. And this would be the easiest way to tripod the model, that we can relate the model back to the surveyor at this path of insertion. The other way, more traditional, is 3 widely spaced points on the model in the same horizontal position. So I'll mark those 3 points, one in the anterior and 2 in the posterior. And then once they're marked with the graphite, you can X them out and you can put the bullseye mark there. Now that would be about a 2 millimeter circle. Don't make 6 millimeter circles. This is very kind of finite, going to be accurate. Conversely, don't make them a 0.5 millimeter either, that you won't be able to see them. So as you can see here, it's been illustrated with the 3 widely spaced points. And my last procedure here to do on this model would be to block out all the undercuts parallel to this path of insertion that we've dictated. So I'm going to get my blockout wax, and I'm hoping we get the opportunity to do this analog and digital. And I'm thinking this is the biggest advantageous in the digital world, is blocking out the model very quickly at any path of insertion. But after that, the framework is printed, you'll still be investing, polishing, fitting, etc. So I would start off with the guide planes. You can start off at any one of the abutment teeth that you wish, and scribe the wax off below the height of contour on the guide plane. This nose surveyor, I'm using a straight analyzing rod, doubling as a surveying rod. I think in the more professional surveyors, they would use a tapered scalpel or a tapered tip. Possibly even heated, so therefore you'd have more time. As you see here, I'm applying the wax, and then quickly, before it solidifies, I'll use the analyzing rod to scrape away. I can only do so much at a time. Otherwise, I'd have to get my alcohol torch reheated up. So I would start off with the guide planes. We've already put with pencil blue and red, marking the reciprocal arm and the retentive arm. Now, I would use a surveyor to scribe the guide planes. There is a different order of operations. Sometimes some people will start off with the major connector. We know that underneath this lingual bar in the anterior would be about 0.3 to 0.5 millimeters. Some postgraduate courses, we wouldn't block out the lingual bar at all, and then through electropolishing and trimming and polishing, you'll gain your 0.3. If you're doing any aprons, though, for sure, I would block those out with the blockout wax at the free gingival margin as a minimum, and I'll get around to that shortly. So I would do the guide planes with the surveyor, and then for the retentive arms and reciprocal arms, creating those ledges which will guide you in your wax up, you could do that more freehand. I'm almost done here. And then once I finish, I'll repost the ledging of this model. And I think from the analog versus digital, the most advantageous is definitely at this stage for the digital. It's a lot quicker and more visual. And hopefully we'll be able to see that. So I'm going to put a very, very, very thin blockout wax on the lingual bar, on the free gingival margin of the apron of 3-3 and 4-3. And then last but not least would be my spacer blockout for the acrylic denture base, the mesh retention, in the free end of the Class 2 and of the dentate side of the modification. So once again, this is review, but we need to really kind of nail this down. I'm going to only put the block out to the extension that I was drawn on my model that I required. I'll leave the mesial side sharp for my internal finishing line, and I'll leave the distal side sharp that will overhang my tissue stop that will touch the tissue, which will support the free end for processing and fitting purposes. I'll seal the blockout wax on the buccal and lingual, and then move over to the other side. The most critical part here is this sharp internal finishing line created by the spacer wax. A lot of us seem to kind of miss the importance of this internal finishing line, which creates a clean junction between the acrylic denture base on the fitting surface of the partial and the acrylic denture base. Excuse me, the junction between the major connector lingual bar and the acrylic denture base. Now, I don't even need to have this on the surveyor table at this point. Really, I just need the surveyor table to block out the guide planes. The rest I can do freehand ledging of my retentive and reciprocal arms.